Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye vows to take the strongest measures against North Korea over its nuclear and missile programs. She tells lawmakers Pyongyang's nukes will only hasten the regime's demise. North Korea's provocations and Seoul's plans to deploy a U.S. anti-ballistic missile system to South Korea are front and center of talks today between senior diplomats from South Korea and China. First, South Korea's central bank freezes the key interest rate at a record low of 1.5% for the 8th straight month. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Tuesday, the 16th of February. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. And we begin with President Park Geun-hye's address to the nation at the National Assembly that wrapped up around an hour and a half ago. Let's get an overview of her remarks with our Presidential Office correspondent Song Ji-sun, who is on the line from the nation's top office. Ji-sun.
Good afternoon, Mark. The president began with a focus on national security. Citing her continued efforts to establish peace on the Korean peninsula since she took office, with her trust-building process and vision for reunification, she denounced North Korea for responding only with advanced weapons technology, which exhibited once again with fourth nuclear test last month and the long-range missile launch that followed just a month later.
이러한 우리 정부의 노력과 지원에 대해 북한은 핵과 미사일로 대답해왔고 이제 수소폭탄 실험까지 공언하며 세계를 경악시키고 있습니다. 국민 여러분, 이제 기존의 방식과 선의로는 북한 정권의 핵개발 의지를 결코 꺾을 수 없고 북한의 핵 능력만 고도화시켜서 결국 한반도의 파국을 초래하게 될 것이라는 점이 명백해졌습니다. 이제 더 이상 북한의 기만과 위협에 끌려다닐 수는 없으며 과거처럼 북한의 도발에 굴복하여 퍼주기식 지원을 하는 일도 더 이상 해서는 안 될 일이라 생각합니다. 이제는 북한을 실질적으로 변화시키기 위한 근본적 해답을 찾아야 하며 이를 실천하는 용기가 필요한 때입니다.
She called for a new approach to resolving North Korea's nuclear ambitions and said South Korea should be more proactive in working towards that goal, including building support for stronger international sanctions on the North. She then moved on to explain the reasons for her recent decision to halt operations at the Inter-Korean Industrial Complex in the north border city of Kaesong, saying that she could not let the South Korean people be held hostage as tensions rise between the two Koreas. Park pledged that the government would do its best to compensate for the losses incurred by the investors and entrepreneurs who left their facilities, assets, and products behind. Over the past few months, the president has been saying that legislation is what completes the government's policy initiatives, and she once again called on lawmakers at the National Assembly to swiftly pass long-pending bills directly related to improving people's livelihoods. That includes a package of labor reforms aimed at creating more jobs for young people, as well as a bill to foster the growth of the service sector, among many others.
서민의 아픔을 달래고 경제 활력의 불쏘시개가 될 법안들에 대해 편향된 시각을 거두고 국민 입장에서 통과시켜 주실 것을 다시 한번 간곡하게 부탁을 드립니다.
And finally, she wrapped up with a message to South Korean people. Showing her appreciation for their trust in the administration, she called for greater support in her drive to change the North and pledged that she would not look away from the people suffering in North Korea. President Park closed her speech by asking both lawmakers and the public to work toward building a peaceful and prosperous Korea. After the address, the president rushed back to the presidential office for a cabinet meeting, where she called for full military readiness against North provocations and ordered her economic chiefs to be on standby for any market fluctuations that may follow, on top of the recent jitters in global markets. Back to you.
Now, officials from South Korea and China are holding strategic talks this Tuesday in Seoul with a focus on reaching a consensus on measures against North Korea's latest provocations. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, discussions between Seoul's Vice Foreign Minister Im Sung-nam and his Chinese counterpart Zhang Ye-su are revolving around bilateral relations, the situation on the Korean Peninsula, as well as regional and international matters of mutual interest. That includes the deployment of the U.S. missile defense system THAAD to South Korea, which China is deeply opposed to, and talks on the UN Security Council's new resolution on North Korea. Now, several sources are saying significant progress has been made on that front, as China and the U.S. appear to be getting closer to narrowing their differences. Now, the annual war games between South Korea and the United States come at a time of heightened tension on the Korean Peninsula following North Korea's nuclear test and long-range missile launch that came within the space of a month of each other. For more on the focus of this year's drills, our Connie Kim reports.
The swift dispatch of U.S. forces and strategic assets to South Korea will be the focus of an annual military exercise between the two countries that's set to kick off next month. Citing high-level government sources, a Seoul-based Yonhap News reports, the focus of this year's key resolve and full legal drills reflects the gravity of North Korea's threats and provocations. The sources also said the deployment of additional Patriot missile systems to South Korea last week was in line with the allies' mission to quickly deploy strategic assets to the south. This year's war games will be the largest ever, with an additional 5,700 U.S. troops and 45 more combat planes taking part. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, one of the top UN officials on North Korea has asked the United Nations to notify the North Korean leadership that it might face an international investigation for alleged crimes against humanity. Kim Mok-yeon has the details.
Marzuki Darusman, the special rapporteur monitoring developments in North Korea, has asked the United Nations to officially notify Kim Jong-un and the rest of his inner circle that a probe into their alleged crimes against humanity will be launched soon. In a report to be presented to the Human Rights Council in Geneva, Darusman said the North's leadership should be put on notice about a pending investigation and told of the corresponding punishments if they are found guilty of the accusations, which include murder, enslavement, torture, imprisonment, and rape. Darusman proposed a panel of 2 to 3 experts be appointed to find the best legal path to hold Pyongyang to account and find creative and practical ways to establish the truth and ensure justice for victims. He said Kim Jong-un and the rest of the leadership should take responsibility for ordering or instigating crimes against humanity, even if lower-ranking officials carried them out. The UN official also highlighted that the human rights situation in North Korea does not appear to have improved at all over the past 2 years, despite the UN's efforts. The UN Human Rights Council will officially review the 13-page report at a general meeting in March. North Korea slammed the previous findings of a special UN Commission of Inquiry that accused Pyongyang of a long list of crimes against humanity. North Korea called it lies and propaganda made up by its enemies, pointing at the United States. Kim Mok-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's central bank has held its key rate steady at 1.5%, continuing its wait-and-see approach amid lingering uncertainties at home and abroad. Our Hwang Ji-ae tells us more.
At its monthly monetary policy meeting on Tuesday, the Bank of Korea decided to stand pat on its record-low key interest rate for an 8th straight month. Facing a worsening slump in exports coupled with tepid domestic demand, the central bank has been under pressure to lower the key rate from its current 1.5%. Korea's outbound shipments plunged 18.5% in January from a year ago, marking the biggest drop in over 6 years. And the downward streak is likely to continue this month, with exports in the first 10 days of February nosediving 27%. Japan's central bank, which recently cut rates into the negative range to boost the economy, has further fueled sentiment for a rate cut here in Korea, as a cheaper yen trend will chip away at Korea's price competitiveness. However, Japan's aggressive monetary easing is not bearing fruit as the Japanese government might have hoped, at least for now. In fact, it has resulted in a stronger yen and sent jitters through the local market. Using Japan as a case in point, economists say that trimming the key rate cannot be a cure-all, especially during a global slowdown. The Bank of Korea also has its hands full trying to tackle snowballing household debt that stands at a hefty $1 trillion. Given such mixed circumstances, the freeze was widely predicted by market analysts, but it remains to be seen how long the central bank will sit on its hands. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, diesel prices in Korea have fallen for 2 straight months amid the low global oil prices we are seeing. According to the Korea National Oil Corporation, the average price of diesel at gas stations nationwide on Monday stood at just over 1,100 won a litre, or 91 cents in US currency. This is down 0.62 won from the previous day and brings the price of diesel close to the 1,074 won recorded in the first week of July 2005. The price of diesel, which reflects changes in global oil prices faster than gasoline, has dropped each and every day for over 2 months since December 7th. The state-run oil corporation says, however, local diesel prices are unlikely to fall much further, with crude oil futures continuing on an upward trend since last week. US President Barack Obama has kicked off a 2-day summit with 10 Southeast Asian leaders at a plush resort in California. The summit is seen as part of the Obama administration's effort to rebalance US foreign policy toward the Asia-Pacific and assert its leadership amid China's growing military and financial power in the region. Giving his introductory remarks, Obama said he was proud to be the first US president to meet all 10 leaders of ASEAN together under the one roof. Now, the top agendas will include maritime security and South China Sea disputes, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Pact, the TPP, and North Korea's nuclear and missile provocations. The US and China have yet to agree on how to respond to North Korea's nuclear test and long-range missile launch. Around 50 civilians have been killed in missile attacks on medical facilities, a school and other locations in Syria. The United Nations says the attacks took place in Idlib, in northern Syria, and the town of Azaz, near the Syria-Turkey border. Doctors Without Borders said 7 people died after a hospital supported by the charity was hit, with 8 members of staff reported missing, possibly buried under the rubble. It blames Syria's government or Russia for that raid and the other attacks that hit a children's hospital, a school and other locations. The United States has commented. It's condemned the airstrikes. The State Department reiterated its call for all parties to end attacks on civilians and to allow humanitarian relief supplies to reach the people who need them. Another Korean victim of Japan's wartime sexual slavery died on Monday evening. It brings the number of surviving victims in Korea now to just 45. The victim, who was only identified under her family name Che because of a request by her family, was 90 years old. She was 16 when she left for Taiwan under promise of work at a factory by the Japanese military, but was forced to work as a sex slave for 4 years. Some 200,000 victims, most of them Korean, are thought to have been forced to work at frontline brothels for Japanese soldiers during the Second World War, but only 238 victims have come forward to register with the South Korean government as former sex slaves. Now, Korea's biggest automaker, Hyundai Motor, is having a pretty good time in Brazil. Its market share hit an all-time high in January, despite the country's slowing economy. According to data by a Brazilian automobile association, the Korean automaker sold slightly over 14,800 cars in Brazil last month, accounting for 9.9%, nearly 10% of total monthly sales in the South American country. Now, the latest figure marks a new record for Hyundai Motor, whose previous market share record was 9.1%. That was set in October of last year. The automaker's sales dropped nearly 16% on year last month, but its share in the Brazilian market was driven up by a sharper decline in car sales generally in the country. They plunged nearly 40% over the cited period. Last month, Hyundai Motors sold almost 9,000 units of the HB20 hatchback, the second best-selling model in the country, following the GM Onix. Now back here in Korea, and a heavy snowfall watch has been issued for several parts of northern Gyeonggi-do province as of 10 a.m. Korea time. The Korea Meteorological Administration is forecasting the region will see up to 8 centimetres of the white stuff by the end of the day. Now, this snow could cause roads in the area to become slippery, obviously, so drivers will want to proceed with caution and by going slower than usual. Gyeonggi-do will continue to see chilly weather with gusts of winds this afternoon with a high of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, so the snow may or may not stick. The cold snap in the region is expected to continue through Wednesday, but things should warm up again from Thursday. Well, that's all we have for now on this Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for watching, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Until then, goodbye.